What's the story, lads? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. I hope everyone is keeping well. It is the penultimate round of fixtures in the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. The Leinster and Munster round robins heat up even more this weekend with the second last round of fixtures. And some big things could happen this weekend. I mean, Limerick possibly could actually, there is a world where Limerick could exit the championship this weekend. I mean, could we have ever imagined saying that a couple of weeks ago? Now, in fairness, some will say, well, when Limerick were in the All-Ireland semi-final and the All-Ireland final and the All-Ireland, quarter, well, there was no quarter-final. They were never really in a quarter-final. But when they're in the semi-final and final, people will be saying, well, they could technically exit the championship then if they got beat. But the fact that Limerick could lose and be out is absolutely mad. Now, there is a certain amount of scenarios that need to happen. Obviously, Limerick need to get beat by Tipperary. And of course, Cork need to beat Clare because Clare have the head-to-head on Limerick, and Cork would go up to 5 points and Tipperary would go up to 5 points if they do go and beat Limerick. So it's a huge weekend. It could have so much consequences. In Leinster, I think not much is really going to change too much this week. I mean, there isn't really a huge amount of games. Dublin are playing Kilkenny, Wexford taking on Westmead, and of course Galway playing Antrim. So a lot of those games I think will be a bit more self-explanatory in my opinion. But we're here to preview the games, we're here to break them down, we're here to discuss what we feel will happen. So yeah, here we go then. So we'll start by looking at the two games from the Munster Championship. As we were saying, it's Tipperary against Limerick and Clare against Cork. Looking at the league table and reminding ourselves as how the Munster Senior Hurling Championship round robin table looks going into round 4 of fixtures. So we've got Clare sitting on top, 2 wins from 3. Obviously, they beat Waterford the last time out, and of course, they also beat Limerick just a couple of weeks ago. Cork are sitting there with a win and a draw, still unbeaten, 3 points from 2 matches, and the same goes for Tipperary. And as we see, Limerick just a win and a defeat so far. They have only played 2 matches, but they are sitting in 4th, and poor Waterford sitting there with 3 defeats from 3, not playing this weekend. And I think Waterford fans will be happy that they're not playing this weekend because, well, they're gone. And unfortunately, they have nothing left to play for. So starting off with Tipperary against Limerick, I mean, this is such an intriguing game because, like, Limerick, it just hasn't quite looked right for them so far in the All-Ireland round robin. And like we seen last year, Waterford gave absolutely everything in the league. They went full throttle, won the league, came into the championship and were flat. And I know that's obviously carried on to this season as well. But you're looking at Limerick and like it was like they didn't really go too strong in the league. They didn't play, it wasn't like Keane Lynch, Aaron Glan, all these lads started. But is there a case maybe that John Coyley should revert back to some of those younger players, the likes of Micheál Houlihan, the likes of Shane O'Brien and Cathal O'Neill? I mean, it's an interesting point, all right. It is an interesting point. And like Aaron Glan on his day, as we know, one of the best hurlers in the country. Obviously, just 7 points from him against Clare, 1 point from play. I thought he was fairly quiet enough throughout the game. Obviously, Grod Hegarty didn't feature against Clare. Will he come back into the side? Like Shamey Flanagan scored 2-1, and I thought he was fantastic. But yeah, it just wasn't quite. I don't know what it was with Limerick. Like I think Clare were fantastic, and to be fair to Limerick, they scored 220. I don't think they were a million miles off what we know that they can be. But I think at the same time, like they were very flat against Waterford, and like Tipperary will be coming into this fancying their chances. The game is at Semple Stadium. They'll be the ones at home. And the fact that Tipperary know that a win could possibly, like, regardless of what happens between Clare and Cork, if Limerick lose this game, it becomes very tough for them to get out of it because, like, let's say Clare beat Cork and Tipperary beat Limerick. It goes down to that final game between Limerick and Cork. And, look, Limerick might win that one, to be fair. But I think, there's a real possibility that Limerick could exit the championship here. And I think for Tipperary, that's going to lead to them getting massively up for this. And I think the fans will come on their numbers. And for Liam Cahill, after some of the disappointments he's had against Limerick from his time managing Waterford, how much would it mean to him to possibly deal what would be a huge blow? But look, in fairness to Limerick, we know the quality that they do have. And they didn't win 3 All-Irelands in a row for no good reason. And at the end of the day, they were the favourites coming into this year's All-Ireland Championship, and in my opinion, they're still the favourites. They still are the team to beat. I know Clare beat them a couple of weeks ago, but Limerick, for me, they're still they faced adversity throughout those 3 years. There was times they looked down and out. There was times they were beaten. Now, more often than not, they did come back and win those games. But you do look back to some of the round robin matches, like they drew with Clare last year. When they won the All-Ireland back in 2018, for example, like they did lose a couple of games in that round robin. I know they were a younger team then, but they have faced adversity and they found a way to overcome it. You would expect Rod Hegarty to come back in the side. I think Aaron Gallan is going to need a big performance. Shamey Flanagan as well. Tom Morrissey scored 4 points the last day against Clare, so I think he's going to need to make a big impact. I think we need to see more from Kyle Hayes, who has been fairly quiet so far this season. And I think in general, from a Limerick perspective, they need their big players to well and truly step up. And to be fair, I think they just might do that this weekend. And I think one of the key reasons why I fancy Limerick to turn them over is the fact that Jason Ford is likely to be missing for this game and is likely actually to be missing for the rest of the Munster Championship, which would be a huge blow for Tipperary if they do go on to possibly reach a Munster final. He scored 210 in his first 2 matches, and for Tipperary in general, like they've been very explosive and very Liam Cahill-esque. I mean, 7 goals in their opening 2 games. Jake Morris has been in outstanding form as well. He scored 2-7 in those 2 matches. They've been absolutely brilliant. Mark Keogh has looked very good. Gerard O'Connor looks like he's, really sort of establishing himself as a mainstay in this side. He scored 1-3. You're looking at Alan Tynan as well. Tipperary have a lot of ways to hurt Limerick, and like they'll go for Limerick's throat. They'll put Limerick under a lot of pressure, and they won't lack confidence. They won't lack belief. Let's not forget when Tipperary played Limerick last year, Tipperary actually played quite well that day. And that was on a day where Tipperary, or in a season where Tipperary were beaten in every game in the Munster round robin. I expect this to be a chaotic game. I expect it to be back and forth. I think there's going to be full of goals. It will be very expansive hurling. I think for Limerick, the big thing will be to watch indiscipline, because I think it has cost them at times. It hasn't cost them in terms of they've still gone on to win All-Irelands. But I think at times they do give away a lot of frees. There can be an element to them of losing their heads on different occasions. I think that's going to be key, because they will be away to Tipperary in their own backyard. And I think you don't want that crowd to get on top of you, to be fair. And I think that could be something Limerick need to be to watch. I do think ultimately I'm going to back Limerick to win by 2 points. I think they will turn it on, and I think they will be too strong for Tipperary. I think at the end of the day, this Limerick side didn't win 3 All-Irelands in a row for no reason. And at the end of the day, they've won 4 All-Irelands in the last 5 years. They've won 4 Munster titles in a row. They are the best team in this province. And I think maybe Clare are just a lot better than what we think they are. And I fancy Limerick to come back stronger, get the victory, and win by 2. And then we've got Clare versus Cork. And in fairness to Clare, I think they've been the best team in the country so far, in my opinion, in the championship. They've been the most impressive. It's hard to really look at Kilkenny and Galway in Leinster because of the opposition that they're playing, and we won't really know more about them until the latter stages of the All-Ireland series. But in terms of Clare, like, they have been absolutely fantastic. And like, we've always looked at this Clare side, looked at the players that they've had in Tony Kelly and Aidan McCarthy, Ian Galvin, who obviously came in for Aidan McCarthy the last day. You look at young Mark Rogers, you look at Peter Duggan, John Conlon, like, so much talent from 1 to 15 in this Clare side. And we often wondered, under Brian Lohan, can they make that step? Can they kick on and possibly, lead Clare to what they believe they want to achieve, which is obviously a Munster title. It's been a long time since they won that. But of course, an All-Ireland, because I do believe there's an All-Ireland in this Clare team. They definitely have the talent. It's more about mental fortitude, in my opinion, and mentality when it gets to the latter stages of the All-Ireland series. But in terms of ability and talent, they're more than capable. Aidan McCarthy didn't play the last day, though, for Clare. He scored 120 in his opening 2 matches. Whether he features in this game, I'm not entirely sure, but that could be another huge blow for Clare, and he's been in absolutely outstanding form, in fairness, from a Clare perspective. Mark Rogers has scored 2-3 so far for Clare. He's been in very impressive form. And the funny thing is with Clare as well is, and I would look at this as a positive, like, I don't think Tony Kelly, like, he scored 13 points against Waterford, in fairness, 5 from play. Like, I don't think he's been in absolute vintage Tony Kelly form throughout the championship. But in fairness, I don't think he's needed to be. And I think, the baggage is took off him a little bit now. I think he doesn't have to be the man to take chances on all the time. Like, he can pick players out now. He can look for players around them. He can do a bit more defensive work because of the fact that you have Aidan McCarthy, Mark Rogers, Ian Galvin, all players who are chipping in with big scores in vital moments. And I think that will only serve for Clare further on down the line, in my opinion. Cork is a strange one because you could say they looked worse against Waterford in the games that they won, rather against Tipperary. They actually played very well. I mean, to score 4-19 is a very impressive feat. And in fairness to Cork, they're a side that, like, when they're on it and when they're good, they're very, very good. The problem with Cork is they just always seem to have massive lapses. And I don't know if it's concentration. I don't know if it's pressure or something of that nature. But, like, you think back to last season against Galway in the quarterfinals, where for large parts Cork were a better side in that team, but they just did not take their chances, and there was so many wides that cost them. Obviously, Cork managed to drag themselves out of jail against Tipperary with a couple of late goals, but I think like, the thing about Cork is that they always seem to leave themselves with too much to do. Like against Limerick, for example, earlier on in the league, like they were down and out at half time, and then they came back and won the game. Like, it's a good trait to have, but at the same time, the worry is that you give yourself too much to do. And like a team like Clare, in the form that they're in, like I can't imagine that Clare would allow Cork back into the game the same way that Tipperary and the way we've seen it with Cork down in the last couple of years as well. Like, they seem to always drag it back or be on or struggle to close out games. Like, it's a tough one with Cork at the best of times. We obviously know the talent that they have in Patrick Horgan, Declan Dalton. I mean, Declan Dalton scored 1-2 against Tipperary the last day. Dara Fitzgibbon has been outstanding the last couple of seasons, whether he's playing in midfield or at wing-back. And Brian Hayes has been a brilliant addition to this side as well. He scored a goal. Shane Kingston, he seems to be always a bit more of a super sub. It's always an interesting one as to why he does not start. But you know he's going to have a big impact in this game. Ultimately, though, I'm going to edge towards Clare. I think at home in Ennis, I think they will be too strong. I think the fact that a Munster final is very much now on the line for Clare. Like, they probably aren't, you know, this is their final game, obviously, of the round robin. And a win here, like, I think that's them very much in the Munster final. I think that's them guaranteed to be in the Munster final. So it will be a huge, huge result, a huge win. And I fancy them to do it. I think they'll beat Cork by 4 points. Moving on to Leinster, as I was saying there, I think these games are a lot more of a formality, so I don't really want to spend too much discussing these games. Kilkenny versus Dublin. Obviously, Dublin travelling to Nolan Park, obviously my own county. Can we do something against Kilkenny? Definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, we always seem to get hammered by Kilkenny. It's just what happens. Like, we'll stick with Kilkenny for probably 20 or 30 minutes. And then once they get going, they'll just blow us away. And to be honest with you, like Dublin, you look at it from a Dublin perspective, we've got Kilkenny and Galway in our final two matches. Like, we might get something from Galway because we do have a decent record against them. Like, we tend to turn them over every now and again, and especially at home, we beat them in Croke Park the last time we played them. We beat them in Parnell Park the last time Dublin played them in the championship. So you never quite know what happens with Dublin and Galway, but going away to Kilkenny, like, I just don't see a world in which we get anything here. Like, it was a good result against Wexford. It was a result that will definitely lift up the confidence. Like, Donald Burke, when he's on form, you see what he can do. Mr. Consistent. And you're looking at the likes of Alex Considine, Dara Gray's look very good. We're still waiting for Ronan Hayes to click into gear, but it just doesn't seem to happen in a Dublin shirt at the minute. But you're looking at it and thinking, I just think Kilkenny all day long. Like, even maybe with Billy Drennan injured, like TJ Reid, Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody, they're far too quick, strong, powerful. Physically, they're better. Technically, they're much better hurlers. Like, they will just blow us away, absolutely blow us away. And I see a scenario where Kilkenny probably win by 9 or 10 points, to be honest with you. Look, I hope I'm wrong. And look, it would be a good test for Dublin. I think the pressure is off here. From a Dublin perspective, we're not expected to win at Nolan Park. I mean, that would just be absolute madness if we were to go there and win, in fairness. Like, we're just not expected to do that. And ultimately, like, Dublin will be eyeing up the game against Galway. And I suppose we will be hoping that Kilkenny can do us a favour in beating Wexford in a couple of weeks' time, because at least then we'll get through finishing in third place. But look, if Dublin can win this game, we have a huge chance of getting to a Leinster final. But ultimately, I just don't see that happening. I think Kilkenny are far too strong, and I think they'll beat us by 8 or 9 points. In terms of Galway versus Antrim, Galway will have far too much here from an Antrim perspective. Obviously, Galway will be eyeing up that Leinster final now as well, and obviously Antrim making the trip down to Galway. We don't expect Antrim to get anything here. Like, Antrim, in fairness, have made great strides in hurling in the last couple of seasons, But Galway, much like Kilkenny against Dublin, albeit Galway are at home, and I think they'll probably beat Antrim by more than what Kilkenny will beat Dublin. But Brian Concannon, Evan Nyland, Conor Whelan, Pádraig Mannion, like all these lads will be far too good for this Antrim side. And yeah, I think they'll beat Antrim by 15 or 16 points, to be honest with you. Wexford versus Westmead is the last game in Leinster. I mean, look, this game was actually a draw last year, believe it or not. This game actually finished as a draw, and Westmead, obviously we're playing at home that time around. This time they'll be playing away at Chadwick's Wexford Park. I've just been very disappointed with Wexford, to be honest with you, under Dara Egan. Like, there's a complete flatness about Wexford. Like, against Galway, they just rolled over. They didn't really look like there was much effort or commitment there. And even in the game against Dublin, like, there was so many wides. And you're looking at it from a Wexford point of view. Like, I think Dara Egan might be playing for his job in some ways now, because, like, look, I think they'll beat Westmead. I think that goes without saying. But I think if they don't get out of Leinster and they have a heavy defeat to Kilkenny on the final day, there might just be an element of maybe Wexford looking around and thinking, is Dara Egan the right man for this Wexford job? Like Lee Chin, he only scored 2 points from play in Croke Park. Rory O'Connor with 5 points. Cathal Dunbar with 2 points. Like, they're just not getting enough from their forwards. Conor McDonald with 2 points. I've been disappointed with Wexford. But look, at home against Westmead, like, this will be a good confidence booster, you'd imagine, from a Wexford perspective. Like, obviously Westmead are without Killian Doyle, which is a huge loss. So I think Wexford will be too strong, and this should be a good confidence booster going into what will be a huge game against Kilkenny next week, of course. Not this week, but the following weekend. So yeah, I'm going to say Wexford by 12 points, possibly more. Maybe I'm being a bit kind to Westmead there. But I'll say 12 points, a very comfortable 12-point victory. And it'll be enough to maybe give Wexford a bit of a chance going into the final day of the Leinster Championship. In terms of Player of the Week and Bet of the Week, Player of the Week, I will go for Tony Kelly. I'm expecting a big performance from him. As I said, he's been, like, in terms of scoring-wise, he's been a little bit quiet. I still think he's been fairly impressive, but I think he'll turn it on this week. I just have a funny feeling. Against Cork, at home in Ennis, I think he will produce a big performance. And in terms of Bet of the Week, like, I suppose there's never really a standout bet in hurling, to be honest with you. And, like, there's going to be no shocks out of any of the games in Leinster. Like, Dublin against Kilkenny, like, it would be one of the results of the year if we managed to go there and beat them. So I just don't see that happening. Like, I suppose Tipperary beating Limerick, like, it would be a shock, you know, and maybe you throw some money on Limerick to actually get knocked out of the championship this weekend. So I don't really know, to be honest with you. I don't really think there is a bet of the week. Like, maybe Clare to beat Cork. I don't really know, but let me know. Let me know if anyone is doing anything of any of that nature. Let me know what you think. So yeah, we'll wrap this up here anyway. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Aaron, and we will catch you all for the next one. Plenty of reactions will be out this weekend. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And yeah, cheers for anyone who's been subscribing recently. We just hit the 4K subscriber mark, so that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, if you could subscribe, it would be fantastic. And catch you all soon.